"I've done this before," said Sergeant Colon, as he and Nobby approached the Fools Guild. "Keep up against the wall when I bangs the knocker, all right?" It was shaped like a pair of artificial breasts, the sort that are highly amusing to rugby players and anyone whose sense of humor has been surgically removed. Colon gave it a quick rap and then flung himself to safety. There was a whoop, a few honks on a horn, a little tune that someone somewhere must have thought was very jolly. A small hatch slid aside above the knocker, and a custard pie emerged slowly on the end of a wooden arm. Then the arm snapped, and the pie collapsed in a little heap by Colon's foot. "It's sad, isn't it?" said Nobby. The door opened awkwardly, but only by a few inches, and a small clown stared up at him. I say, it said. "Why did the fat man knock at the door?" "I don't know," said Colon automatically. "Why did the fat man knock at the door?" They stared at each other, tangled in the punchline. "That's what I asked you," said the clown reproachfully. He had a depressed, hopeless voice. Sergeant Colon struck out towards sanity. "Sergeant Colon, Night Watch," he said. "And this here is Corporal Nobbs. We've come to talk to someone about the man who was found in the river, okay?" "Oh, yes, poor Brother Beano. I suppose you'd better come in then," said the clown. Nobby was about to push at the door when Colon stopped him and pointed wordlessly upwards. "There seems to be a bucket of whitewash over the door," he said. "Is there?" said the clown. He was very small, with huge boots that made him look like a capital L. His face was plastered with flesh-colored makeup on which a big frown had been painted. His hair had been made from a couple of old mops, painted red. He wasn't fat, but a sort of hoop in his trousers was supposed to make him look amusingly overweight. A pair of rubber braces, so that his trousers bounced up and down when he walked, were a further component in the overall picture of a complete and utter twerp. "Yes," said Colon, "there is." "Sure?" "Positive." "Sorry about that," said the clown. "It's stupid, I know, but kind of traditional. Wait a moment." There were sounds of a stepladder being lugged into position, and various clankings and swear words. "All right, come on in." The clown led the way through the gatehouse. There was no sound but the flop-flop of his boots on the cobbles. Then an idea seemed to occur to him. "It's a long shot, I know, but I suppose neither of you gentlemen like a sniff of my buttonhole?" "No." "No?" "No, I suppose not." The clown sighed. "It's not easy, you know, clowning, I mean. I'm on gate duty 'cause I'm on probation." "You are?" "I keep on forgetting. Is it crying on the outside and laughing on the inside? I always get it messed up." "About this Beano," Colon began. "Oh, we're just holding his funeral," said the little clown. "That's why my trousers aren't half-mast." They stepped out into the sunlight again. The inner courtyard was lined with clowns and fools. Bells tinkled in the breeze. Sunlight glinted off red noses and the occasional nervous jet of water from a fake buttonhole. The clown ushered the guards into a line of fools. "I'm sure Dr. Whiteface will talk to you as soon as we're finished," he said. "My name's Boffo, by the way." He held out his hand hopefully. "Don't shake it," Colon warned. Boffo looked crestfallen. A band struck up, and a procession of guild members emerged from the chapel. A clown walked a little way ahead, carrying a small urn. "This is very moving," said Boffo. On a dais on the opposite side of the quadrangle was a fat clown in baggy trousers, huge braces, a bow tie that was spinning gently in the breeze, and a top hat. His face had been painted into a picture of misery. He held a bladder on a stick. The clown with the urn reached the dais, climbed the steps, and waited. The band fell silent. The clown in the top hat hit the urn carrier about the head with the bladder. Once, twice, 3 times. The urn-bearer stepped forward, waggled his wig, took the urn in one hand and the clown's belt in the other, and, with great solemnity, poured the ashes of the late Brother Beano into the other clown's trousers. A sigh went up from the audience. The band struck up the clown anthem, the March of the Idiots, and the end of the trombone flew off and hit a clown on the back of the head. He turned and swung a punch at the clown behind him, who ducked, causing a third clown to be knocked through the bass drum. Colin and Nobby looked at one another and shook their heads. Boffo produced a large red and white handkerchief and blew his nose with a humorous honking sound.
"Classic," he said. "It's what he would have wanted."
"Have you any idea what happened?" said Colin.
"Oh yes, Brother Grinaldi did the old heeled and toe trick and tipped the urn down."
"I mean, why did Beto die?"
We think it was an accident,"
said Boffo. "An accident," said Colin flatly.
"Yes, that's what Dr. Whiteface thinks."
Boffo glanced upwards briefly. They followed his gaze. The rooftops of the Assassin's Guild adjoined the Fool's Guild. It didn't do to upset neighbors like that, especially when the only weapon you had was a custard pie edged with short-crust pastry.
"That's what Dr. Whiteface thinks,"
said Boffo again, looking at his enormous shoes. Sergeant Colin liked a quiet life, and the city could spare a clown or two. The loss of the whole boiling could only make the world a slightly happier place. And yet... Honestly, he didn't know what had got into the watch lately. It was carrot. That was what it was. Even old Vimes had picked it up. We don't let things lie anymore. "Maybe it was cleaning a club sort of thing, and it accidentally went off," said Nobby. He'd caught it too.
"No one would want to kill young Beto," said the clown in a quiet voice. "He was a friendly soul, friends everywhere."
"Almost everywhere," said Colin. The funeral was over. The jesters, jokers, and clowns were going about their business, getting stuck in doorways on the way. There was much pushing and shoving and honking of noses and falling of brats. It was a scene to make a happy man slit his wrists on a fine spring morning.
"All I know is," said Boffo in a low voice, "that when I saw him yesterday, he was looking very odd. I called out to him when he was going through the gate, and—"
"How do you mean, odd?" said Colin. I am detectoring, he thought, with a faint touch of pride. People are helping me with my inquiries.
No, odd. Not quite himself."
"This was yesterday?"
"Oh yes, in the morning. I know because the gate was—"
"Yesterday morning."
"That's what I said, mister. Mind you, we were all a bit nervous after the bang."
"Brother Boffo!"
"Oh no,"
mumbled the clown. A figure was striding towards them. A terrible figure. No clowns were funny. That was the whole purpose of a clown. People laughed at clowns, but only out of nervousness. The point of clowns was that, after watching them, anything else that happened seemed enjoyable. It was nice to know there was someone worse off than you. Someone had to be the butt of the world. But even clowns are frightened of something, and that is the white-faced clown. The one who never gets in the way of the custard. The one in the shiny white clothes and the deadpan white makeup. The one with the little pointy hat and the thin mouth and the delicate black eyebrows. Dr. Whiteface. "Who are these gentlemen?" he demanded.
Boffo began.
"Night watch, sir," said Colin, saluting. "And why are you here?" "Investigating our inquiries as to the fatal demise of the clown Beto, sir," said Colin.
"I rather think this is guild business, Sergeant. Don't you?"
Well, sir, he was found in the—"
"I am sure it is something we don't need to bother the watch with,"
said Dr. Whiteface. Colin hesitated. He'd prefer to face Dr. Crucius than this apparition. At least the assassins were supposed to be unpleasant. Clowns were only one step away from mime artists, too. "No, sir," he said. "It was obviously an accident, right?"
"Quite so. Brother Boffo will show you to the door," said the head clown. "And then," he added, "he will report to my office. Does he understand?" "Yes, Dr. Whiteface," mumbled Boffo.
"What did he do to you?" said Nobby, as they headed for the gate.
"Hat full of whitewash, probably," said Boffo. "Pie in the face if I'm lucky." He opened the wicket gate. "A lot of us ain't happy about this," he whispered. "I don't see why those buggers should get away with it. We ought to go around to the assassins and have it out with them."
"Why the assassins?" said Colin. "Why would they kill a clown?"
Buffo looked guilty. "I never said such a thing." Colin glared at him.
"There's definitely something odd happening, Mr. Buffo."
Buffo looked around, as if expecting a vengeful custard pie at any moment. "You find his nose," he hissed. "You just find his nose. His poor nose." The gate slammed shut. Sergeant Colin turned to Nobby.
"Did Exhibit A have a nose, Nobby?"
"Yes, Fred."
"Then what was that about?"
"Search me." Nobby scratched a promising boil. "Perhaps he meant a fake nose. You know, those ones on elastic? The ones," said Nobby, grimacing, "they think are funny. He didn't have one." Colin rapped on the door, taking care to step out of the way of any jolly amusing booby traps. The hatch slid aside. "Yes," hissed Buffo.
"Did you mean his false nose?" said Colin.
"No, his real one. Now bugger off." The hatch snapped back. "Mental," said Nobby firmly.
"Beano had a real nose. Did it look wrong to you?" said Colin.
"No, it had a couple of holes in it."
"Well, I don't know about noses," said Colin, "but either Brother Buffo is dead wrong, or there's something fishy going on."
"Like what?"
"You're what I might call a career soldier, right?"
"That's right, Fred."
"How many dishonorable discharges have you had?"
"Lots," said Nobby, proudly, "but I always puts a poultice on them."
"You've been in a lot of battlefields, ain't you?"
"Dozens." Sergeant Colin nodded.
"So you've seen a lot of corpses, right, when you've been ministering to the fallen?"
Corporal Nobbs nodded. They both knew that ministering meant harvesting any personal jewelry and stealing their boots. In many a faraway battlefield, the last thing many a mortally wounded foeman ever saw was Corporal Nobbs heading towards him with a sack, a knife, and a calculating expression. "Shame to let good stuff go to waste," said Nobby.
"So you've noticed how dead bodies get deader," said Sergeant Colin.
"Deader than dead?"
"You know, more corpsey," said Sergeant Colin, forensic expert.
"Going stiff and purple and such like."
"Right."
"And then sort of manky and runny."
"Yes, all right."
"Makes it easier to get the rings off, mind you."
"The point is, Nobby, that you can tell how old a corpse is. That clown, for e.g., you saw him, same as me. How long would you say?"
"About 5'9", I'd say. His boots didn't fit. I know that. Too floppy."
"I meant how long he'd been dead."
"A couple of days. You can tell because there's this."
"So how come Buffo saw him yesterday morning?"
They strode onwards. "Bit of a poser, that is," said Nobby.
"You're right. I expect the captain will be very interested."
"Maybe it was a zombie."
"Shouldn't think so."
"Never could stand zombies," Nobby mused.
"Really?"
"It was always so hard to nick their boots." Sergeant Colin nodded at a passing beggar.
"You still doing the folk dancing on your nights off, Nobby?"
"Yes, Fred. We're practicing Gathering Sweet Lilacs this week. There's a very complicated double crossover step."
"You're definitely a man of many parts, Nobby."
"Only if I couldn't cut the rings off, Fred."
"What I mean is, you presents an intriguing dichotomy."
Nobby took a kick at a small scruffy dog. "You've been reading books again, Fred."
"Got to improve my mind, Nobby. It's these new recruits. Carrot's got his nose in a book half the time. Angua knows words I has to look up. Even the shortest is brighter than me. They keep on extracting the urine. I'm definitely a bit under-endowed in the head department."
"You're brighter than detritus," said Nobby.
"That's what I tell myself. I say, Fred, whatever happens, you're brighter than detritus. But then I say, Fred, so's yeast."
Elsewhere, he turned away from the window. So, the damn watch. That damn Vimes. Exactly the wrong man in the wrong place. Why didn't people learn from history? Treachery was in his very genes. How could a city run properly with someone like that poking around? That wasn't what a watch was for. Watchmen were supposed to do what they were told and see to it that other people did too. Someone like Vimes could upset things, not because he was clever.
A clever watchman was a contradiction in terms, but sheer randomness might cause trouble. The gun lay on the table. What shall I do about Vimes?
Kill him,